Think everyone thinks the asteroid that killed the dinosaurs was the worst day in history. They are mathematically wrong. The rock that ended the Cretaceous wiped out 76% of all species. A catastrophe by any measure. But 186 million years before that asteroid even existed, something far worse happened. Something that makes the dinosaur extinction look like a mercy killing. 96% of all marine species vanished. 70% of all terrestrial vertebrates gone. Not from a rock falling from the sky, but from something far more disturbing. The Earth turned against its own inhabitants. This was not an extinction. This was a planetary suicide attempt. And it almost worked. The weapon was not a meteor. It was not a comet. It was a crack in the crust of Siberia that opened and refused to close for 200,000 years. The Siberian traps a region of volcanic rock so massive that if you poured its lava over the continental United States, it would bury the entire country 3 Empire State Buildings deep. How did one specific patch of land in Russia manage to suffocate the entire planet for 200,000 years? That question haunted geologists for decades. The answer is worse than anything they imagined. Among the creatures living in this doomed world was an ugly, pig-faced burrower called Lystrosaurus. Stubby legs. Barrel body. 2 tusks jutting from a face that looked like evolution had given up halfway through. By every metric of the time, it was unremarkable. A background animal. Destined for extinction alongside everything else. Remember that creature. The world before this extinction was not empty. It was thriving. Trilobites, armored arthropods that had survived 2 previous mass extinctions, crawled across every ocean floor. Gorgonopsids, saber-toothed predators the size of bears, ruled the land. Sea scorpions. Reef ecosystems. A planet humming with 300 million years of evolutionary experimentation. All of it was about to be erased. But the true horror was not the death toll. It was the mechanism. Because the Siberian traps did not kill life directly. They did something far more insidious. They rewired the chemistry of the planet itself. And to understand how a crack in the Earth became a 200,000-year execution chamber, we need to examine the machinery of death. The Siberian traps eruption was 4 million times larger than Mount St. Helens. Not a typo. 4 million. The eruption that killed 57 people and devastated 230 square miles of forest, multiply that violence by 4 million, then stretch it across 200 millennia. This was not a volcanic event. This was a planetary cremation chamber, a blast furnace that opened in the Earth's crust and ran continuously for longer than Homo sapiens has existed. The lava alone would have been catastrophic. 200,000 gigatons of molten rock. 1,000 times the weight of Mount Everest, liquefied and poured across the landscape. But the lava was not the weapon. It was the trigger. Beneath the Siberian crust lay something worse than magma. Coal deposits. Limestone. Organic sediments accumulated over hundreds of millions of years. When the magma contacted these layers, it did not simply burn them. It cooked them. Converted them into gas. Carbon dioxide. Methane. Sulfur compounds. Chlorine. Mercury vapor. The Earth began to exhale poison. For 200,000 years. The atmosphere transformed. Carbon dioxide levels spiked to concentrations not seen in 300 million years. Global temperatures rose by 10 degrees Celsius, not locally, but everywhere. The equator became uninhabitable. Surface temperatures at the tropics reached 165 degrees Fahrenheit. The temperature that cooks chicken. The temperature that denatures protein. The temperature that turns living tissue into something resembling boiled meat. The oceans absorbed the heat. Water temperatures climbed past 104 degrees Fahrenheit. At these temperatures, seawater cannot hold oxygen. It releases it. The oceans began to suffocate. Scientists call what happened next the rise of the Hypercanes, theoretical superhurricanes driven by ocean temperatures exceeding 50 degrees Celsius. Storms with 500-mile-per-hour winds. Atmospheric blenders capable of turning anything in their path into shrapnel. Walls of wind louder than jet engines. Not for hours. Not for days. For decades. Continuously. Covering half a continent at a time. Pause for a moment on the scale. At 165 degrees Fahrenheit, proteins in living tissue begin to denature. Muscles lose structure. Cells collapse. Organisms do not die from the heat. They are cooked from the inside out. Every creature that could not burrow, that could not find shade, that could not escape to higher latitudes, their bodies failed at the molecular level. But the heat was only the beginning. The sulfur compounds released by the eruptions combined with water vapor. They formed sulfuric acid. The rain became corrosive. It stripped leaves from plants. It burned the skin of animals. It dissolved the calcium carbonate shells of marine organisms while they were still alive. The oceans turned into a chemical vat 32% more acidic than normal seawater. A battery acid bath that corroded the skeletons of creatures from the inside out. And then came the final blow. The heating oceans could no longer hold another gas, hydrogen sulfide. This compound, the smell of rotting eggs, is toxic to most complex life at concentrations above 100 parts per million. The dying, anoxic oceans began releasing it into the atmosphere in quantities measured in trillions of tons. Hydrogen sulfide rose into the stratosphere. And there, it did something catastrophic. It destroyed the ozone layer. The sky stopped acting like a shield and started acting like a magnifying glass. Ultraviolet radiation, normally filtered by ozone, bombarded the surface at levels that shattered DNA. Plant mutations. Animal cancers. Reproductive failure across entire taxonomic groups. The sun itself became a weapon. Remember the question, how did one patch of land suffocate a planet? Because it was not just erupting. It was rewriting the chemistry of air, water, and light itself. A cascade that fed itself. Heat released gas. Gas trapped more heat. Heat killed oceans. Dead oceans released poison. Poison destroyed the shield. The sun finished what the volcanoes started. This is what 251.9 million years ago looked like. A world where the sky was a bruised purple iodine and methane mixing with sulfur haze. The sun filtered through ash until it resembled a dying eye. No green anywhere. The forests had burned or suffocated. The reefs had dissolved. The Great Permian ecosystems, 300 million years of accumulated complexity, reduced to bacterial mats and fungal blooms feeding on the dead. The trilobites died here. Understand what that means. These armored arthropods had survived 2 previous mass extinctions. They were the veterans of apocalypse. The Permian killed them anyway. Every single species. Gone. The Gorgonopsids, apex predators that had dominated the land, vanished. Sea scorpions. Gone. 96% of marine species. 70% of terrestrial vertebrates. The greatest dying in the history of complex life on Earth. And then something stranger happened. For 5 million years after the extinction, there were virtually no apex predators. The top of the food chain sat empty. Earth was a kingdom with no king. A throne room with no occupants. The ecosystems that eventually recovered took 10 million years to stabilize, 5 times longer than the recovery from the asteroid that killed the dinosaurs. In this world of poison air and acid rain, where the sky was a weapon and the ocean was a grave, who survived? The answer is the most disturbing fact of all. Remember the ugly, pig-faced Lystrosaurus. The creature we said was destined for extinction. The background animal with stubby legs and a face like evolution's rough draft. It inherited the Earth. At one point, 95% of all land vertebrates were Lystrosaurus. One species. One ugly, burrowing, unremarkable survivor. Not the strong. Not the fast. Not the intelligent. The creature that could dig into the ground and wait. The creature that could slow its metabolism and sleep. The creature that survived the apocalypse by refusing to participate in it. It did not fight. It did not adapt to the new conditions. It disappeared into the soil and let the world burn above it. Evolution did not reward strength. It rewarded the ability to become invisible. This is what survival of the fittest actually means. Not survival of the strongest. Not survival of the smartest. Survival of the most miserable. The creature that could tolerate the lowest quality of life. The organism that needed the least to persist. We spend billions on asteroid detection. We simulate nuclear winters. We fear the rock from space. But the Earth already did this to itself. No external force required. Just a crack in the crust, 200,000 years of chemical warfare, and the patience to wait for complex life to choke. We are living on a dormant bomb. The trilobites were the masters of their world. They had survived everything evolution could throw at them. 300 million years of success. And the Permian killed them anyway. The Lystrosaurus was ugly. Boring. Barely alive even when conditions were good. It inherited the planet. If the Earth decided to reset the board tomorrow, and make no mistake, the machinery still exists, the magma still churns, the carbon still waits in the crust, which one would we be?